The story of World of Warcraft has always been about more than factions, raids, and gear. Beneath the surface of every expansion, every whisper, every artifact, every shadowed prophecy, there has been a deeper war raging. A war of philosophies, of power, of cosmic forces vying for the soul of creation itself. This is the World Soul Saga, a storyline that spans millennia, touching every realm of existence. From the titans who shape the stars to the void lords who dream of unraveling it all. From the primal forces of life and death to the zealous light and the chaotic fire of Fel. Each force has tried in its own way to shape Azeroth. But what if they all come to a head? What if the last titan, the final chapter in this saga, isn't just about the return of the titans, but the convergence of all 6 cosmic powers? Northrend may be the battlefield, but the war is much bigger than Icecrown. This is about who controls the prime world soul, and maybe reality itself. In this video, we're breaking it all down, force by force. What they want, where they're moving, and what evidence Blizzard has left behind. This is the Convergence, and Azeroth's fate hangs in the balance. In case this is your first time hearing about this titanic struggle, here are some details about the 6 cosmic forces that you need to know about. In the universe of World of Warcraft, everything, life, death, even time itself, is shaped by 6 primal cosmic forces. They're not just magic types or enemy factions, they're philosophies and entire ways of viewing reality. Order seeks to structure everything. It's the power of the titans, logic, and control. Death is about inevitability and stillness. It shapes the afterlife and the scourge. Void represents infinite possibilities, madness, and prophecy. It wants to unravel all truth. Light brings hope and purpose, but can become fanatical when forced on others. Disorder, or Fel, is pure chaos. It burns everything down to rebuild power through destruction. Life is creation, growth, and wildness, but even it has its own form of dominance. Each force has its champions, its enemies, and its own vision for how reality and Azeroth should be, and in the last Titan, all 6 may finally collide in something more than a proxy war. Let's take a deeper look at each of them, starting with Order. Now, the Titans, as agents of Order, believe in shaping the universe into a predictable, stable machine. To them, reality functions best when it is cataloged, optimized, and free of chaotic interference. Azeroth, as a nascent world soul of immense power, is central to that design. The Titans are positioning themselves to fully awaken Azeroth and bring her under their control, whether she agrees or not. And they've been playing the long game with this. After the war with the Old Gods and the reshaping of Azeroth, they built Titan structures throughout Azeroth in order to observe and influence her, and they've been doing so for millennia. That network of structures is called the Manifold, and it's a kind of cosmic tuning fork, built to ensure that Azeroth awakens as a Titan. Now, the command center for the Manifold is in Northrend, and as we all know, we are going to Northrend in the last Titan. We can combine that with other evidence, such as the questline that brings about Tyr's return. At the end, your character asks him if he plans to deal with the chaos in Northrend. He ultimately opts to learn more about the modern world before making any moves, leaving him open to returning in the last Titan. Either way, with incursions from other cosmic forces into Azeroth, I highly doubt that the Titans will allow millennia of work to become corrupted unchallenged. And whether that is Tyr or Amenthul himself, we can only speculate. Moving on to the next cosmic force, let's talk about Death. Of all of the cosmic forces, Death has seen the most recent upheaval. The events of the Shadowlands broke the back of its hierarchy. The Jailer was defeated, the Arbiter replaced, and the machinery of Death rebooted. But what many forget is that this didn't bring peace, it brought a power vacuum, and nature hates a vacuum. Now, Death's power doesn't just reside in domination, it thrives on structure, cycles, and endings. The Jailer wanted to rewrite that cycle through control, but other figures and wildcards are still at play. While the Arbiter and the Winter Queen and other various forces in the Shadowlands are trying to rebuild, people like Denathrius, or Helia, or even the Nathrazim may have different visions. Some might want balance, others vengeance, and still others complete chaos. What they all share is opportunity. And that opportunity is Northrend. The Scourge activity in Northrend is not quieting, it is ramping up. Thanks to exploring Azeroth, Northrend, we have a lot of evidence to support the fact that the Scourge are returning. New Scourge activity is being reported across the continent with warbands forming. Naxxramas still floats over Winterguard, and Icecrown Citadel is still held by the undead. The Shadow Vault held by the Ebon Blade was already lost once and had to be reclaimed. It is vulnerable. And the Horde and Alliance have pulled most of their forces out of Northrend. This provides ample opportunity for one of these influential figures of death to swoop in and take over the Scourge. And with the Scourge at their back, they would have all of the forces they need to make a play for the Prime World Soul. Moving right along, let's talk about the Void. If death operates through dominion and rot, then the Void works through seduction, madness, and prophecy. The Void doesn't conquer with brute force. It uses corruption, temptation, and infiltration. And thanks to the presence of Xal'atath in the World Soul Saga, we are intimately familiar with how close the Void is to enveloping Azeroth. If I had to guess, the Void wants to corrupt the Prime World Soul before it awakens into a Titan, because then it would become a god of entropy, a being through which the Void could rewrite reality. And we already know that the Void is making a move against Azeroth. Xal'atath, a sentient fragment of a Void Lord, has been the main antagonist for all of the War Within, and we know she is going to continue to be the main antagonist as we enter Midnight, the next expansion. And Midnight is going to involve a Void-led attack on the Sunwell, possibly to turn it into a Void Well or a rift through which the Void can enter Azeroth. Not to mention the fact that Xal'atath is not the first influence of the Void to be on Azeroth. The old gods are Void-created creatures. And specifically, Yogg-Saron's influence is still lingering in Northrend in the form of Saronite. Honestly, the Void may be the best prepared to corrupt the world soul of Azeroth. The old gods have been on Azeroth since time immemorial. Xal'atath has been working behind the scenes since at least Legion, and there are prophecies leading us to believe that it is entirely possible that they will succeed. Like all the other cosmic forces, the Void senses that Azeroth's world soul is stirring, and they are making one final push to try to influence it before it awakens, with the ultimate goal of bringing the inevitability of entropy that much closer. Moving right along, we come to probably the most directly referenced cosmic force, the Light. Now, the Light has always been portrayed as a benevolent force in World of Warcraft, but that narrative has grown more complex with each expansion. It is not inherently good. It is a force of order, obedience, hope, and certainty, and in recent years it has begun to show a darker, more militant side. The Light seeks harmony through absolute conviction. It doesn't negotiate or entertain doubt. Those who serve the Light fanatically believe in its truth, and in many cases, they believe that truth must be enforced. We've seen hints that the Light would rather dominate than cooperate. It doesn't just want to save the world, it wants to convert it. No example of that is more prevalent than when Zera, a Naru, tried to forcibly convert Illidan's Stormrage in Legion. In Chronicle, the Naru openly admit that all things must bow to the Light or be destroyed, and in alternate Draenor, we saw what happens when the Light's will goes unchecked. It leads to the rise of the Lightbound, a regime of radiant zealots who forcibly converted or purged entire populations. Now, echoes of that zealotry are bleeding into Azeroth. There are several key signs that the Light is becoming active in Northrend again, and it may be preparing to assert cosmic control over Azeroth. The biggest one is that the Scarlet Crusade has returned to Northrend. They're no longer a shattered cult. They've reestablished themselves in New Hearthglen. They've fortified and organized, and they're launching attacks on the Forsaken. And actually, this week, after the release of 11.1.7, we have found that the Scarlet Crusade has joined a new banner called the Red Dawn. The Red Dawn is a human supremacy group that has pulled together the Defias, the Syndicate, the Scarlet Crusade, and members of Stromgarde who were unhappy with the current standing in the Alliance. The Stromgardians are of Arathi descent, and speaking of the Arathi, we have the Orion fanatics of the Arathi Empire that were introduced in the War Within. The Arathi are an ancient bloodline steeped in reverence for the light. Their Orion fanatics resemble the Lightbound of alternate Draenor, zealots, who may be open to radical alliances to purge Azeroth of shadow. And that brings me to the Priory of the Sacred Flame. This dungeon features light-infused undead, implying a disturbing fusion of life and death through light magic. It suggests that factions like the Scarlet Crusade may not just be killing undead, they may be converting them. With all of that in mind, here's the theory about what the light may be really planning. It isn't coming to oppose the void. It's coming to counter the chaos caused by all of the other forces. It's going to throw itself at void, death, Fel, even the Titans, because it sees Azeroth as broken. And if the Titans won't fix it, the mortals can't, and none of the others are going to even try. Maybe it's time for the light to enforce its own radiant order. Whether that's through the Scarlets or the Orion or new agents, the light may very well launch its own inquisition in the Last Titan. A holy war cloaked in righteousness, but driven by control. And that begs the question, what would become of the Prime World Soul were it forced to follow the light? Moving on to our fifth cosmic force, this is the one that has been a consistent problem since the very first Warcraft. This is the cosmic force of disorder, better known in Warcraft as Fel, the reality-tearing power of the Burning Legion. The cosmic force of disorder seeks to unmake structure, burn it all down, and start anew. Unlike the void, which wants to remake existence in its own image, or the light, which imposes rigid harmony, Fel is pure destruction born of chaos. The Burning Legion, led for eons by Sargeras, was the living manifestation of this goal. But we beat the Legion, right? Well, not entirely. See, Sargeras isn't dead. At the end of Legion, Sargeras was imprisoned by the Pantheon, but not destroyed. And before he was taken, he stabbed Azeroth, leaving a gaping wound we haven't fully healed. We also know that Sargeras' ultimate goal wasn't to conquer the universe, it was to purge it before the Void could corrupt it. His logic was, if the Void Lords corrupt a world soul, all of reality will fall. Better to destroy them first. So what happens when he finds out the Void is making its move again? Does he return? Does he send agents? Make no mistake, Fel is still active. Fel-touched creatures are still appearing. In the War Within's datamined files and encrypted content, hints of Fel-related storylines exist. For instance, models of demons in updated armor sets, rumor-filled empowered bosses in future dungeons, and the green fire of warlocks remains untouched and unexplained. It's not gone, it's just waiting. And remember, Fel has never needed a full army to spread. It only needs one desperate soul. Gul'dan is a perfect example of that. And then there's also the Nathrezim. We've discussed how Dreadlords are cosmic infiltrators. They have been working with the Burning Legion since the beginning of Warcraft. And while in Shadowlands it was revealed that they serve death, it doesn't mean that they're not playing multiple sides. And then there's the sword. Remember the sword? Please remember the sword. Now, we partially stabilized the wound using Azerite, but the sword opened the World Soul up to Fel corruption. And it's something we've never really finished dealing with. There is potential for someone to decide to take advantage of the sword or the wound still in Azeroth. Regardless, with all of the other cosmic forces converging on Azeroth, Sargeras' worst fears may yet be realized. And that being the case, when we return to Northrend in The Last Titan, I would expect some fell company. That brings us to the last, but not least, cosmic force, life. Among the 6 cosmic forces, life is the most subtle. It doesn't march in armies like death, or burn worlds like Fel, or whisper corruption like the void. Life spreads. It grows. And when it's pushed to its extremes, it overgrows, devouring, assimilating, and evolving beyond all control. Until recently, life seemed to be watching from the sidelines, but that's starting to change. You see, life is tied to Ardenweald and the Wild Gods, the primal forces of nature that reincarnate through the Shadowlands. When we helped rebuild the cycle in Shadowlands, we didn't just restore the natural flow of life and death. We set the stage for life's resurgence in Azeroth. Many wild gods were restored and their spirits were returned to Azeroth. That includes Ursoc's lineage, and things like Loa and Ancients with deep ties to the Emerald Dream and Primal Azeroth. In Dragonflight, Marithra becomes the leader of the Green Dragonflight, life's stewards on Azeroth, and she's not just watching anymore. The Green Dragons are active again. And their realm, the Emerald Dream, was once just a blueprint of Azeroth, an untouched realm of life. But thanks to the events of Dragonflight, it has become a locus of power. With the Dream's connection to Ardenweald and the existence of the New World Tree of Mirdrasil, there's no telling what that power might be used for. Blizzard has hinted in lore and interviews that life isn't always benevolent. It can overwhelm. It can become invasive. We've seen examples before. The Spore Mounds in Draenor were proto-life entities so dangerous that the Titans imprisoned them. The Evergrowth, referenced in Warlords of Draenor lore, was an all-consuming expansion of life that couldn't be stopped. And the Drust in Kul Tiras twisted life magic into a deadly, almost parasitic form. In each case, unchecked life becomes a dominating force, not unlike death or void. It seeks balance only on its terms. And thanks to Shadowlands, we also know that Elune is a member of the Life Pantheon. And we know what it looks like when she gets pissed off. So why would life be making a move in The Last Titan? Well, for ages, the cosmic force of life has acted more like a gardener than a general, nurturing growth, fostering balance, and reacting only when imbalance becomes a threat. But if all of the other cosmic forces are going to be converging on Azeroth, it's not hard to see why life would throw its weight around. A cosmic battle of such epic proportions is sure to throw some things out of balance. This convergence of cosmic forces is something that Blizzard has been building for years, one breadcrumb at a time. Each cosmic force is poised to make its move, and Azeroth stands at the center, not just as the battleground, but as the prize. And just know that The Last Titan is not just the end of a saga. It is the collision of everything we thought we understood. If you like this video and you want to see more deep dives into the story behind the story, subscribe to Crypt Milk and level up your thirst for lore.